Hello and welcome to another segment of Campaign Catch Up. David Brody, John Stolnis joining me. And gentlemen, obviously the big story of the weekend, as you and I, David, were live over the weekend responding to this second assassination attempt here on President Trump. The suspect is in custody now, not talking apparently up until this point. So what do we know, David, and what are you hearing?
Well, I mean, it's so fluid. I mean, we could talk in this minute and everything could change the next. But to me, what's interesting here, and let's just get right to this. This is the sheriff in Martin County. This is the Martin County, Florida sheriff. Came out today at a press conference, also talked to Fox News. He was on the ground when they arrested the suspect there. This is what he said, and here's the quote. And I'll pull it up right here. I apologize if I don't have it right away. Let me get it for you. He said, is he part of a conspiracy? This is the sheriff talking. This is the sheriff who arrested the suspect at the scene. He said, quote, is he part of a conspiracy? And then he went on to say, excuse me, let me just get this. Sorry. He said, how does a guy from not here get all the way to Trump International, realize that the former president of the United States, is golfing and is able to get a rifle in that vicinity? Now, understand, that's not a tinfoil hat wearing MAGA supporter. That is the sheriff of Martin County, who was involved in this. And that's a question at this hour. And so for people that are going down the road of, is it a conspiracy? Was he a lone gunman guy, X, Y, and Z? These are serious questions. And why are these serious questions? Just because the sheriff said it? No. Because if you look at this guy's track record, he was lobbying in Congress. He had met with some folks on the Democrat side and others. He had known folks. He wrote a book. I don't know if you guys have seen this. He wrote a book called The Unimaginable War. And in this, it was self-published in 2023, about a year ago. It's called The Unimaginable War. He describes Trump as a fool, as a buffoon, and he criticized Trump for breaking up the Iran nuclear deal. Now, wait for it. Here comes the line. In the book, he talks about assassinating President Trump. Here's what he says. He's talking about how he's frustrated that the Iran nuclear deal was broken up by Trump. And he says here it is, excuse me, just give me a second. I'm popping around on all my screens here. Here it is. He says, quote, he's talking to Iran. He's basically saying, sorry about breaking up the Iran nuclear deal. We're fools in America for doing so. And Trump's the lead fool for doing so. And then he says this to Iran, quote, you are free to assassinate Trump as well as me for that error in judgment and the dismantling of the deal. No one here in the U.S. seems to have the blank to put natural selection to work or even unnatural selection. This is verified. Axios is out with this. Others are out with this. This is not crazy tinfoil stuff on the internet. I never do that. I make sure I go to a reputable news organization. I didn't say correct. I just said reputable. Anyhow. So it's important to understand that all of this was out there. What in the world is going on? We applaud the Secret Service for this. They took the shot, and they tried to, and they took care of it as it relates to arresting this guy. But he's alive, and there's a lot of questions to be asked, because how in the world do you not have one of those canine sniffing dogs along the fence at the 5th, 6th, 7th hole, along that entire stretch? I mean, once again, there are serious questions about how the Secret Service even allowed something like this to get to happen. So those are a few things that I'm thinking about this afternoon.
And based on some analysis that we have done here, just judging by the AP pictures of where they were setting up the investigation scene and the trucks and whatnot, it looks like he was positioned somewhere right near about the 7th tee. And if you look at the map on Google Maps, you can see that it's looking right across the lake to the other side. And so you can see that if Trump were able to keep going without them noticing him, I mean, he would have walked up probably less than 50 yards is the 6th green from this spot where he was at. And then even closer, walking up to that 7th tee, would have been right in front of him. I mean, it would have been literally almost face to face. So it's absolutely insane that he was able to even get to that spot in the first place. And, and then it was also fortunate that he was caught because the Secret Service agents were inside the course. He was on the outside of this tall chain link fence, and he fled. And a citizen saw him fleeing and took a picture of his license plate. And then that's how local police were able to catch him. So, I mean, he could have actually gotten away potentially if this citizen hadn't actually got him. So that was incredibly fortunate there. But John, this all going down, the questions that remain, the first assassination attempt, by the time we got to this debate, the moderators didn't bring it up. Trump brought it up one time. Right. What do you expect to see going forward here now that this has happened again?
That's a great question. And it is interesting that after the first assassination attempt, it did kind of fade away. It faded away, I think, for most of us as we've been kind of keeping track, because a presidential campaign and an election is such a day-to-day affair. The different news of the day, the stories of the day, as long as the story is not moving forward, if there's nowhere for that story to go, like these news stories need oxygen, right, in order to stay kind of in the public eye. And as long as there's something to keep feeding the beast, as we like to say in the news business, or maybe don't like to say, but that's just what it is. Right. That's what keeps the story in everybody's at the front of everybody's mind. And so I don't know, once Trump and Harris, they get back on the campaign trail, they get back on the stump. I don't know that this second attempt really affects the polls in any way. It doesn't seem as though it would change anybody's mind on who to vote for. I think we're going to kind of go back to normal within the next couple of days, unless something really crazy happens, unless some part of the investigation comes out that really changes things. And we just don't know enough about the investigation. David brought up some very good points about how this was possible, that this person was able to be in the spot that he was in. Given that this was not an anything official on the president's schedule, that this is normally someplace that's closed to the public. So it is very strange, and it's very unusual. I mean, the oddity of 2 assassination attempts happened, that this was possible given the fact that the former president just survived an assassination attempt a couple of months before is mind-boggling. And so, yes, on one side, the Secret Service did a good job in finding this guy before tragedy struck, but at the same time, how does he get this close to pulling it off? I mean, it really became almost a fait accompli how close Trump got to him.
If I could just just a quick interjection as to what John's saying. So just to continue on that same idea, you can't put this in a test tube. In other words, second assassination meant a 1.4 bounce in the poll. Right? That's not how it works. Right. But the way it does work is that even though a Lester Holt and X, Y, and Z anchor or reporter don't bring it up anymore, the American people understand what's going on in terms of it being absorbed. And I don't mean the second assassination attempt. I'm talking about the 2 impeachments, the 2 assassination attempts, the 34 convictions, the 91 charges. You put it all together like that, and people have a sense, right or wrong, good or bad, left or right, because remember, Democrats will say, yeah, exactly, all of that. That's a reason not to vote for Trump. There's a lot of folks that will look at that and go, look at God's got his hand of protection over him. There's that side of it, right? In terms of the way people see this. So I'm just simply saying that you might not see a tangible bump in the polls in a test tube situation from, Nate Silver and the 538 gang, but you will. But all this does resonate ultimately in how voters decide. And I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting voters are going through what I just said, 2 impeachments, but you actually kind of absorb it kind of from an osmosis standpoint, and it becomes part of the package as to how you see both candidates. I mean, there's folks out right now saying, and it's a good point, Trump survived 2 assassination attempts and Kamala Harris has barely survived 2 interviews. So you have that kind of juxtaposition going, and that helps Trump.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Obviously, there's going to be more details coming out. This would-be assassin here hasn't really spoken yet to date. So, of course, on CBN News, we will have those updates when they come out. We'll be on that story. But I want to shift gears now. And this Haitian migrant story, the Haitian immigrant story, continues to get legs, and the media is digging into that. Guys, what's your response to this? David, I'll start with you.
Oh, okay. Well, I figured I'd play off of what John had to say. But
okay. I mean, you can shift it over to John if you want. I mean,
no, that's fine. I'll go first. I'll go first. That's fine. I'll just simply say this. The conventional wisdom is to say this is not good politics for Trump. And John and I were in the debate hall there in Philadelphia, or not the hall, but the spin room there, and the media filing center. And when he said it, I just cringed and I said, "Oh gosh, this is not good." And guess what? If you're a big fan of NBC's Meet the Press and CNN and legacy media, then it's not good. But the problem is, and it's a problem for NBC's Meet the Press and CNN and others, a lot of folks don't trust these outlets. So therefore, I'm not convinced that it's actually bad for Trump. Let me go a little bit further on this. Look, what are we talking about post-debate? Are we talking about any of Kamala Harris's policies out of that debate? No, she didn't have any. Are we talking about any viral moment for Kamala Harris that kind of stuck it to Trump? No, we're not. She didn't have a viral moment. What's the viral moment, guys? Eating cats and dogs and all of the stuff that's out there on TikTok and social media and Instagram. That's what people are talking about. So now you say, yeah, but that's bad for Trump. I don't necessarily buy it now. Look, if you're on the side of protecting the cats and dogs and your pets, that actually is not a bad thing. So once again, to understand, I want to take a step back and not look at this from a political, analytical standpoint. I want to just look at it from kind of like, Joe Blow in middle America who loves their dog or cat. And if you've got memes out there where Trump is huddling and protecting cats and protecting dogs, that's a good visual. And if you're on the side of dogs and cats and pets, rather on the side of Haitian immigrants who came into a town in Springfield, Ohio, 20,000 of them, who are causing some problems in the town, according to the residents of Springfield, Ohio, not according to me, according to those residents, that might not be a bad place to be from a political standpoint. So once again, there's a three-dimensional, maybe even a four-dimensional play here. I'm not quite sure it harms him as much. But if you go down the conventional playbook and take your cue from the legacy media, they're going to destroy Trump on this. And there's going to be people that will believe that. But I'm not quite sure. I think this is an outside-the-box thinking situation.
All right, John.
I mean, I think the situation here is too. I mean, a lot of the folks who point to this and just ask the question: Is it true? And if it's not true, if it's not verifiable, and if you have local officials on the ground who are telling you that they have no proof of this happening, then is it responsible to continue on with this? And then I know that Democrats will say that feeds into how credible is Senator Vance, how credible is President Trump, how credible is anybody else amplifying these reports. I mean, I'm not there. I don't know what's happening, but I mean, if you're taking the advice over some constituents, over the local officials on the ground, one of whom is the Republican governor of the state, then I think it's a fair question to ask. Should you be talking about this? Is this something that you should be putting front and center? Because I certainly do think, and the mayor of
Springfield.
Thank you, Springfield.
Springfield.
Yeah, Springfield. He's admitted, like, we have issues with immigration here in this town. Like, there are problems here that we can talk about, that we need to address. But the problem that you get into when this kind of thing, and yes, I think the legacy media does spin these things into into even more than it should be sometimes. It really affects everybody in the town. Like, there's death threats on local leaders there. I mean, you've got, threats of violence and all this kind of stuff. You've taken this I don't know how big it is, but this one town, and now it's at the center of the political conversation here in America. And the stuff that we're talking about may not even be true. So I think it's fair to say, you ask the question, the fact that on Sunday, Senator Vance was continuing to double down and go on these different shows to talk about it, continued to feed oxygen to it. I mean, so I think, I don't know, this is one of those things. And I think we get a couple of these in every presidential election cycle where the media and the candidates and everything there's one thing that just goes nuts, and this might be that. because it's such with all the things that are going on in the country, the legitimate things to talk about, policy discussions to be had specifically about immigration. The focus is on whether or not some Haitian migrants in this town are eating cats and dogs. And so I think that's where Vance and Trump are leaving themselves vulnerable here.
Well, they're only leaving themselves vulnerable by bringing it up. What they're doing in the liberal legacy media a layup here to go after them. The problem is, you say the focus is on this. Well, who's focusing on it? It's the liberal media that's focusing on it. That's all they want to talk about. And you know why they want to talk about it? Because it makes them mad. So I mean, this idea that Donald Trump is going around and this is like he's leading with the pets and dogs situation, or so. Matter of fact, Kristen Welker on NBC's Meet the Press this weekend said that most of the talk this week was about eating cats and dogs, and no, that's not true. Oh no, she said that Trump was talking about it mostly this week. No, he wasn't. I mean, I went back and watched. He was talking about that mostly. It was the media that was talking about that mostly. So if you want to blame, not you, but if people want to blame Trump or Vance for anything, it's like they gave the media an opening to do it, knowing that they would full well take advantage of that.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, Dan. I'll just say this too. I mean, I think that Vance and Trump are in control of their message. At least they should be in control of their message. If they didn't want this story to continue to spin, they could stop it. They could just say, listen, I've said what we said about it. We'll wait for more information, but I think we should be talking about something else. But I think that they have continued this. They have helped the media continue this thing. If you're in control of your message, and whether or not somebody, the legacy media necessarily wants to pick up on what you're saying, that certainly is something that we can discuss. But like continuing to feed into it, you're just hurting yourself. And it's one of those things. Like I made this comparison to my wife earlier today. I was basically saying, like, suppose you have a neighbor down the street that you think is making crystal meth or whatever, and you call the police to investigate it. Hey, come, I think they're making crystal meth down the street. Can you please investigate this? And the police come, local authorities come, and they investigate. No, there's no that's not happening. There's no crystal. We found no evidence of that happening. And then you go out and you start telling all your neighbors and the rest of the town that your neighbors you think they're doing crystal meth or making crystal meth down there. How responsible are you for that story continuing, for that message being out there?
Well, we can talk about this for a while, but let me just say this. I mean, this goes to the credibility of public officials. I keep going back, we've lost faith in our public institutions. It's also we've lost faith in our public officials. If Walter Cronkite was moderating a debate 45 years ago when he said, we check with the city manager, everybody say, okay, sounds good, end of story. But not today. Not today. There are residents of Springfield, Ohio, according to J.D. Vance, that literally told him what is going on, that they have seen it, that they have experienced it. Now, once again, here's the point. Are we going to go with that? No. But are we going to go with a city manager who has decided to put the kibosh on this? My point is, where is the in-depth reporting from the liberal media? They just want to call. David Muir gets on the debate, is at the debate and says, we call the city manager, and they say it's hogwash. And that's supposed to be the end of it because David Muir made a 7-second phone call to the city manager. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the city manager, we don't know anything more. And here's the dirty little secret. And I hate to say it, but I'm just going to say it. Look it up. And Marianne Williamson, who ran as a Democrat, we know about her. She brought it up, but and she was cast just destroyed for it. But it is true. We know in Haiti, voodoo is a part of that society. We know this. CBN's reported on this. We know this. A part of those rituals involve what we're talking about right now. I'll just leave it at that. So this idea that Haitian, not other migrants, but Haitian migrants could be doing this is not necessarily out of the realm of possibility based on what some of the some things that go on down in Haiti are. And that's not me being kind of strange. That's just the truth of the matter. There's been detailed reporting about that type of stuff. So when you have that, my point is this: where is the investigation? I'm sick and tired, honestly, guys. I'm sick and tired of making a quick call to the city manager and saying that's the end of it.
Right.
And they did this in the 2020 election. It was the same thing. Well, we checked with the Secretary of State. He said everything was fine. Oh, okay. Good night. It's been a pleasure seeing you. Come on. I'm not saying either way what's right or wrong. I'm just simply saying one phone call ain't going to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've taken off our journalistic cap in America. I really do.
I think you guys both have good points here. I mean, I think to one hand, if you're the Trump administration, like John was saying, you got to make sure that you have, because, and like you said, David, they're going to take any little misstep and any little thing you do, and they are going to lean into that. You have to know that. And so even if you said it wrong at the debate, you got to clear that up the next time around so that whatever you say in your messaging is ironclad. Whether it is just, you know what, I've talked to people on the street. This is what they're telling me. So, I mean, I'm just telling you what they're telling me. Like that's a true spec. Just keep it as buttoned up as you can possibly get it so that you feel good about it and that you know what you're saying is 100% accurate. But at the same time, on your side, David, there, you know, the media does tend to do that. They tend to just lean into these things and over dive into them and make it about this particular memeable sort of thing rather than, like John was saying, the bigger issues.
I just want to say, don't you think that Kamala Harris is doing the exact same thing when she gets on a debate stage and she says that Trump said verify people on both sides? She's not stupid. She's not stupid. She knows that that's not true. I mean, the tape is out there and it's been debunked by Snopes and others. So the point is, she knows it's not true, but it serves her purpose. Just like with Trump and Vance, it serves their purpose to do what they're doing because they think it kind of plays into this whole, you know, be concerned about your community stuff. So if you're going to get on, not you, but if people are going to get on Trump and Vance for the pet stuff,
for sure, you got to do it both ways.
Yeah, if you're saying it doesn't serve them well then yeah, I agree. But the thing is that Harris is doing the exact same thing, and why is she doing that? Because she wants people to believe that anybody that supports Trump, or specifically Trump and Vance, are a couple of white supremacists who are nationalists in scope, and that they're danger to society. She's doing the exact same thing. She's ignoring the evidence. If you want to talk about ignoring the evidence, she's ignoring the evidence of what's there. It just frustrates me, guys. Sorry. It just frustrates me.
I'm with you on that, David. And when I say the Trump administration has to, or, you know, campaign has to sort of button, it's understanding that fact on the ground, that there's a higher chance, given a general left lean on the media, there's a higher chance there's going to be increased scrutiny on claims they make versus what Harris and Walz make. And so I agree with you there. But let's close this thing out, guys. I want to just, before we go, take a look, as we always do, where are we standing in the polls right now? What's the latest you guys have seen?
Well, I just happen to have the Real Clear Politic top battleground averages right now for the top battleground states, and again, these are all inside the margin of error. And so again, if you want to say that Trump is always underreported in some of these polls, then you can kind of skew it in a certain direction here. But in Arizona, as of right now, Trump is up by 1.3%. In Nevada, Harris is up 1.2%. Wisconsin, Harris up 1.2%. Michigan, less than 1%. Pennsylvania, a dead heat, essentially. North Carolina, Trump up by 0.4%. Georgia, Trump up 0.3%. I mean, obviously, these are all numbers that are way closer than where they were when Biden was the nominee. The Georgia number, I think, is interesting because it looked like Trump had a real stranglehold on Georgia. And at the very least, these rolling averages make it look a lot closer. So that's kind of where things stand as we are now 50 days away from Election Day as we're talking right now. All of these battleground states really do seem too close to call right now.
And the ABC Ipsos poll, the latest one, shows that Harris is up 2.5% nationally, but only 0.3 in the battleground states. And that, to a degree, makes sense. In other words, she's going to do better nationally than she will in the battleground states. And remember, we always talk about that key number, 4%. Kamala Harris probably has to be up +4 nationally for her to potentially win the Electoral College come November, the way all of the numbers shake out. So if she's at 2.5 nationally, that's not getting it done. She'll probably end up losing at this rate. But it's tight. It's very tight. And
I will add one other thing. In the polls that I have seen since the debate, I have not seen a big bump for Kamala Harris in any of these different polls. Maybe a point, maybe a point and a half, 2 points in some of them, but certainly not anywhere in the lines of like 3-4% in any of these battleground states or nationally either. So I was saying right afterwards, like if she doesn't get a big bump after this debate, the big bump is probably not coming. If there's going to be a build, it'll be a slow build, but I don't think we're seeing a big bump following the debate.
A couple things real quick.
Go for it,
don't
David.
forget, Kamala Harris's team internally has worse poll numbers than what we're seeing. They're seeing worse poll numbers. That's very important. Number two, we just found out just in the last hour or so, Kamala Harris's team is now spending money in the Boston market because of New Hampshire. They're playing in New Hampshire. That should say everything. 4 electoral votes in New Hampshire. If they're spending money, and they're spending a lot of money in Boston to reach that New Hampshire electorate, that tells you internally they're concerned about New Hampshire. And of course, if Trump wins New Hampshire with 4, that could be, I mean, that changes all of the math we've done on 270 to win, if you will. But the point is, they're spending money in New Hampshire. They shouldn't be spending money in New Hampshire in September, but they are, and that's a problem.
All right, CBN chief political analyst David Brody, John Stolnis, host of the DC Debrief podcast. Gentlemen, as always, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Dan.